Welcome back, Pleasant Glade Elementary Clubhouse kids. So we are going to continue reading on Ralph S. Mouse, Beverly Clearly, by Beverly Clearly. Last time we met, Ralph was leaving his home because he was afraid that he would get his friend Matt fired because of all the mouse droppings with all of his cousins, relatives coming out to want to take a ride with his motorcycle. So he decided to take that motorcycle. Do you remember where? That's right, to Ryan's school in the town of La Cucaracha, to Irwin J. Sneed Elementary. So here we're going to pick up where we left off. As Ryan hopped on the steps of the bus, Ralph poked his nose out of his pocket and found himself in a crowd of children, all of them bundled up in the hooded parkas or jackets and knit caps. There he is. All right, snuggled in the pocket. Clouds of vapor came from the mouths as they shouted back and forth to one another. As a cloud formed in front of Ralph's nose too. You guys imagine that on a cold winter morning? Your puffs of vapor come out of your mouth as well when it's cold. A boy jumped out of a yellow truck and shouted, "So long, Dad." Then, as the truck pulled away, he added, "So long, Arfie," to the dog sitting in next to the driver. "Arf," answered the dog, who looked like a kindly wolf. That boy must be Brad, thought Ralph. As the children trampled the snow on the playground, on their way to the long one-story building that was the Irwin J. Sneed Elementary. Inside the building, the linoleum floor hall, unlike the halls of Mountain View Inn, was a broad, smooth highway with no rough carpet to wear down the already thin tires of the little motorcycle. Ralph wondered how long he could endure a whole day of waiting for night to come so he could race down that long haul. There would be no furniture to get in his way and no little relatives to make him feel guilty for not sharing his motorcycle. That hall was perfect race course Ralph had dreamed about forever since he ever owned the motorcycle. With no one around to see him take spills, he could even rear back on the wheel to practice wheelies. Daisy! Sorry, I gotta yell at my dog to get out of the garden. Daisy, out of the garden. Ryan entered room 5, a room different from any other Ralph had ever seen. Unlike rooms in the inn, this one was furnished with many chairs and tables instead of beds. At the front seated a desk was a woman Ralph knew must be Miss K. Her toothpaste was nowhere in sight. You guys remember why Ralph was looking for her toothpaste or wondering where it was? That's right. He thought that most teachers just brushed their teeth. At the end of the room, Ralph hung his backpack on a hook. Then he removed his parka and hung it on the hook too. "Hey, don't leave me in here all by myself," squeaked Ralph, alarmed at being alone in such a strange place. "Take me with you." "Promise you'll stay out of sight?" whispered Ryan at the corner of his mouth. "Sure," agreed Ralph. Ryan started to poke Ralph into the pocket of his jeans until Ralph objected. "Hey, not here. This place is too tight. You'll squish me when you sit down." "Sorry," said Ryan as he dropped Ralph into the breast pocket of his plaid shirt. No sooner than Ryan sat down at the table that he and the rest of room 5 stood up again to recite something about a flag and something about liberty and justice for all. Whatever it was, Ryan hoped mice were included. Here's a picture of Ryan in the classroom. Ryan sat down and began to shuffle books and papers while Miss Kay talked about numbers. Ralph tried to listen about them, the steady lub-de-dub of Ryan's heart beat. But soon they grew bored. Ryan's shirt was new and the flannel still fuzzy. Ralph nibbled a hole in the front of the pocket for a better view, and then, lulled by the muffled lub-dub and the steady rise and fall of Ryan's chest, fell asleep as he were being rocked in a cradle, because the heart does not strike the hours like a clock. Ralph slept until recess. Again until lunchtime, when Ryan remembered to slip a bit of sandwich into the pocket for him at lunch. Sometimes in the afternoon, Ralph woke feeling hot and cramped and restless. So I'm going to go back and you can see a little bit more of the classroom. Sometime that afternoon, Ralph woke feeling hot, cramped, and restless. Maybe no one would notice if a small brown mouse poked his nose out for a breath of air. After a few whiffs, Ralph tucked his head all the way out to see what was going on. All heads except one were bent over paper on tables. One girl was chewing her pencil and staring into space. That's funny, thought Ralph. I didn't know people gnawed on things too. Unexpectedly, the girl turned her head and looked straight at Ralph. She had tapped another girl on the shoulder and pointed. Too late, Ralph ducked back into the pocket. He heard the girls whisper, and soon others were whispering too. Oh, thought Ralph, feeling both guilty and doomed. He had broken his promise to stay out of sight. He was in trouble. Miss Kay spoke. Melissa, is something disturbing you? She asked. Melissa thought Ralph. So that's the girl whose boot I'm supposed to live in. Not exactly, Miss Kay, answered Melissa. There seems to be something going on that I don't know about, persisted Miss Kay. Won't you let me in on it? That word persisted. That means you keep going, that's right. I thought I saw something. Sorry, the road's kind of noisy today. I thought I saw something move in Ryan's pocket, admitted Melissa. Ryan, do you have something you wish to share with the class? Asked Miss Kay. And here we can see Ralph sticking out of Ryan's pocket. Right there. All right. Going back. Ralph squeezed himself into a corner of the pocket as Ryan's heart beats began to go faster and rev up as Ralph thought of it. No, not exactly, Ryan told his teacher. The class began to speak. He does too. I saw something and it moved. Ralph dug his claws into the flannel shirt as Miss Kay said, Ryan, why don't you come to the front of the room and let us see what it is? Ralph started to chew through the side of the pocket closest to his heartbeat. As Ryan walked to the front of the room, he reached into his pocket, grasped Ralph by the tail, and dragged him clawing and struggling out of the pocket. Ralph was so angry at this treatment, he was squeakless. When Ryan set him on the palm of his hand, he turned his back to the class and sat quivering with rage and terror. What a beautiful mouse, said Miss Kay, who was young and enthusiastic and eager to give the pupils a learning experience. Class, gather around for a better look. I'm beautiful, thought Ralph. No adult or child, for that matter, had ever described him as beautiful. Look at this perfect little paw, said Miss Kay. Ralph looked, too, at the class. as they left their seats to crowd around him. His paw looked ordinary, like an ordinary mouse paw to him, but now that she mentioned it, maybe... Loki, out of the garden! Sorry, guys. Sorry. He looked at his ordinary mouse paw, looked like an ordinary mouse paw to him, but now that she mentioned it, maybe... And to his lovely little ears, continued Miss K. Aw, breathed the children. He looked cute. He's really neat. He's darling. Well, what do you know? Ralph perked up and stopped quaking. Shyly, he turned his face to the class. One member of room 5, however, did not admire Ralph. He's just your standard brown mouse, said Brad. There's plenty more of him. Where did you get your mouse, Ryan? Asked Miss K. At the hotel where I live, explained Ryan. He's a very smart mouse. His name is Ralph. He's a very smart mouse. His name is Ralph. What's his last name? Asked someone. Mouse, answered Ryan. His name is Ralph S. Mouse. The S stands for smart. May I hold Ralph? Asked Miss K. And Ralph found himself transferred to a softer, cleaner hand. He sat up and began to groom his whiskers. Always a good performance. He could see that Ryan was happy to receive so much attention from his classmates. "Aw," breathed the class again. "Look at him. He just washed like a little cat." "Such tiny scrap of life," said Miss K. "He's just a little miracle." Ralph stopped wiping his paws over his whiskers and looked with love at Ralph's teacher. Her long, shiny hair fell over her shoulder. It looked so strong that Ralph was just sure that just one of her hairs would be perfect for tying his exhaust pipe together. "Perhaps the custodian has a cage we could keep him in," said Miss K. Love turned to distrust. This wonderful woman with useful hair was turning out to be like any other grown-up. Now think about it. Why would love turn to distrust? What was the teacher talking about that made Ralph feel distrustful? That's right, she mentioned the word cage. Ryan spoke up. "I don't think Ralph would be happy in a cage," he told his teacher. "I just keep him in my pocket if that's all right with you." "Good old Ryan." Miss K gently handed Ralph back to Ryan, who stuffed him in his shirt pocket. "Thank you for sharing, Ralph," she said, when a lub-dub of Ryan's heart now steady to a well-oiled motor. "Class, how would you like to draw pictures and write stories and poems about mice? Friday afternoon, we could have a mouse exhibit to show off our work. Ryan, you could bring Ralph to school again so that he could be our guest of honor." Miss K, who had no idea Ralph was planning to live at school, was a teacher who could turn anything into a project. Most of the class was enthusiastic. Others thought mice were as good a subject as any for drawing and writing. A boy named Gordon, he didn't like to do any of those things. Miss K suggested that he go to the library, look up facts about mice, and write an essay about them. "And what do you want to do, Ryan?" she asked. "I would like to tell how smart Ralph is." Ryan's answer threw Ralph into a fright. What was Ryan going to tell his classmates about? The motorcycle? Ralph would not ride his precious motorcycle in front of anyone. "Splendid, Ryan," said Miss K, "but why not show us how smart he is? Do you know what a maze is?" "Sort of," said Ralph. "I've seen them on kids' packages on Sunday paper." You can take a pencil and try to draw the lines through the open spaces of a diagram from one side to the other. It isn't easy because there are lots of dead ends. That's right, said Miss K, who was drawing a maze on the blackboard as Ryan spoke. Scientists use mazes with walls to test the speed at which mice learn. They start with a mouse at one end and time him to see how fast it takes for him to reach food at the other end. Then they have him do it again. If he cuts his time down, they know he has learned from the experience. Do you think you could build a maze? Here's a picture of that maze that the teacher drew on the board. I like to try, said Ryan. Good, said Miss K. I'll bring a stopwatch for timing Ralph's race through the maze. Can I bring my cap pistol for a starter gun? Volunteered Brad, showing interest for the first time. Good idea, said Miss K. You like to build things, so perhaps you could help Ryan build his maze. The boys eyed one another as if they were not sure how this partnership would work out. Okay, agreed Brad. So it happened that Ralph was not the only learning experience. So it happened that Ralph was not the only learning experience of Room 5. He was to have a learning experience of his own. He was not sure he liked the idea, especially the part about the starter gun. What if he couldn't run through the maze faster the second time? What if he couldn't find the food the first time? What if he turned out to be stupid? Have you ever felt like maybe you wonder whether you're not smart enough? Does something ever make you feel nervous like Ralph? Let's see. Of course, I'm not stupid, thought Ralph, as he tried to make himself comfortable in Ryan's pocket once more. I can ride a motorcycle, can't I? He began to have doubts again, and doubts turned into anger. His intelligence or his stupidity was nobody's business but his own. When the last bell rang and Ryan went to the back of the room to collect his parka, Ralph poked his nose out of the pocket. I'm not going to do it, he squeaked to Ryan. I'm not going to run any maze just because you say so. Sure you are, Ryan said out of the corner of his mouth. No one would notice he was talking to Ralph. I'm new in this school, and nobody pays any attention to me until I pulled you out of my pocket. You have to run the maze. Ralph became stubborn. No, I don't, he said, contradicted, and you can't make me. Ryan ignored this remark. Do you want to change your mind about staying here? You can go back to the inn with me. I'll stay here, answered Ralph, thinking. That long, smooth hallway waiting for this motorcycle. I can't let Matt lose his job. Ryan looked around to make sure no one was watching before lifting Ralph out of the pocket and placing him on the overturned boot. So long. See you tomorrow, he said. Who are you talking to? A boy asked. Me. Ryan was all innocent. Nobody. I was practicing being a ventriloquist. I'm working up an act. Here's a picture of Ryan leaving Ralph. Some act, remarked the boy. Ryan held up his hand and wagged his finger as if he were working a puppet mouth. What did one dandelion say to the other? He answered in a squeaky voice without moving his lips. I don't know, he said in a normal voice. Then he answered in a squeaky voice, Take me to your weeder. All this sense made Ralph frantic. Hey, give me that motorcycle, he ordered as soon as the other boy had gone. Ryan tried to speak without moving his lips. And have you riding all over the school? Not a chance. You get lost or get into trouble or something. Someone would see you. "It's my motorcycle," squeaked Ralph at the top of his lungs. "You give it to me now." Ryan was last to leave the room. "We'll see." "We'll see about that," he said as he bent over to speak to Ralph. "After you run the maze on Friday." With that ultimatum, he snatched his backpack off the hook and hurried away to catch the bus that would take him back to the mountain hotel. Ralph was so angry he sank his teeth into Melissa's boot. That's a nasty taste, half rubber, half dust." And he had thought Ryan was his friend. No, anymore. He was mean, he wasn't fair. Ralph felt terrible, but he wasn't going to run the maze in front of room 5. Ryan couldn't make him. Maybe he would even hide and refuse to be the guest of honor. Ryan would learn not to try to order him around then. Ralph sat in Melissa's boot and sulked. Without his motorcycle, he felt mad at the whole world. Of course he was a smart mouse. Why should he have to prove it? Ralph felt as if nothing was fair and nobody loved him. So, as we wait to read chapter 4, I want you to think about what kind of prediction would you make about what's going to happen the next day on Friday when Ryan comes back to school. And Ralph, do you think he's actually going to refuse to run the maze? Do you think he's going to refuse to be the guest of honor? What kind of trouble do you think he might get into during the nighttime at Irwin Sneed Elementary? So think about those things, and I'll see you next time I read. Bye.